Hi there, I'm Dave Prosper, and I'm here to discuss my topic, which is Astronomy Club's outreach efforts during a pandemic, lessons learned going forward. And as part of this subject, I'm deviating a bit from the standard Zoom and PowerPoint kind of presentation, and I hope that's okay. This whole thing is being done using some software that many folks discovered and used extensively during the pandemic, which is OBS, or Open Broadcast Software. Now, I work on the NASA Night Sky Network program for the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. The goal of this program is to connect astronomy clubs across the United States with NASA science and outreach materials and resources. So, obviously, these efforts were very much changed by the pandemic. Now, one important characteristic of many in the astronomy outreach community is how innovative they are and how dedicated they are to outreach despite all obstacles. We love space, folks. We love sharing stuff about space. Let's get in. So, the Night Sky Network, or NSN, was started in part to assist with outreach in situations that are not the normal sort of star party or sidewalk astronomy situations where you're just kind of hanging out by a telescope. Any number of indoor events like science fairs or classroom presentations, or you're at a museum, a science day like the Buffalo Astronomical Association here, or when you needed at big outdoor events like badging events for scouts, despite cloudy or inclement weather. As you can see in this slide here, hanging out with the scouts. I believe this is the Westminster Astronomical Society. Now, we make outreach toolkits to assist in all varieties of events and situations. Since outreach really can happen anywhere, and our members have further improved these materials and really done incredible things, just making them fit in all kinds of situations. So we were extremely eager to work together with our community to figure out how to do outreach during COVID. We've learned quite a bit and worked hard to share lessons learned with the community and inspire folks to try new and exciting forms of outreach, both virtual and with ingenious in real life events and some limited in-person events during this time. We work closely with astronomy clubs and organizations adjacent to astronomy to help share ideas for these events. We even hosted a webinar with Amy Oliver and her nationwide live stream Star Party crew to help share knowledge of how to stream views from your telescopes to online locations like YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. And when we did this, it was very new to Amy and her crew too, so it was great to get a really fresh perspective and to be told, like, don't worry about failing. You're going to fail at first. It's fine. Very nice. Great crew. We then compiled some of these tips into a webpage that folks could use as a jumping off point as they began their own journey into astronomy live streaming and online outreach. And as part of this, we compiled some of these tips into sheets that folks could download or print out with best practices for both their online live streaming events on this side here, and in real life events, which we created following practices from events from the CDC, in which we allowed customization for all local guidance measures as well. Virtual stargazing and sharing live views from a telescope in general, something that can be done on a screen in real life or at the eyepiece as well, streaming to a computer or stream. These are a major breakthrough. So bright targets like the moon and planets work well for folks starting out, as they can be captured even by smartphone cameras hooked up to telescopes via pretty inexpensive eyepiece adapters. And as you can see here, it's possible to even do it without tracking on a simple Dobsonian. But I gotta say, tracking and remote control makes life much easier for the astronomy streamer. This is actually a little bit from my own stream, and I am not present because I am moving the telescope and then coming back inside. But yeah. It does not take a whole lot to be able to do this. There are even passive outdoor activities you can set up, like solar system walks and sidewalk chalk astronomy, as shared here by a member of RASC, the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. You can just set these things up and kind of forget it. Passers-by can enjoy these types of outreach at any time, nicely socially distanced, etc., etc. Streaming meetings provided even more benefits to members as well. For many, this was their first meeting of a club they attended, or the first they came to in years. And I'll get to why that would be in a second. Clubs also stream their activities as often as part of their meetings or their planetarium shows or live stargazing events. Sometimes they mixed them all up into one, like the South Florida Astronomical Association here in this collage. You can kind of see some of their setups for their mega shows that they do, which are quite impressive. Folks also streamed planetarium shows using software like Starry Night or Stellarium. This, for many, is much easier to do than live views from your telescope, and it's a great backup for rainy days and for sites that you can't see from your location and for general stargazing tips. Many clubs actually reverted to this in case their own virtual telescopes were fogged over during this time. And a few folks even enjoyed streaming space-themed games. So some enjoyed kind of more grounded sims. Won't know it from looking at the little wacky man there. But the nuts and bolts sort of rocketry antics of the Kerbal Space Program, while others kind of enjoyed a little more fanciful flights of fancy through the universe, like games like No Man's Sky. But what do we take away for the future? There were a few surprises as we went virtual. Online meetings helped to re-engage many club members who were unable to make meetings due to traffic, timing, or physical and mobility issues. Distance, of course, a big one. New members were also introduced to the clubs due to the ease of which they could find them. And funny enough. And when everyone is inside in the computer, people start searching for their local area or online for instructions for anything to do. And a lot of people found out they loved doing astronomy and loved hanging out with astronomy folks. So, in fact, that was a big reason we added virtual meetings as an option to the Night Sky Network calendar, shared by clubs across the US. So on our calendar, people can now search for astronomy events near them or for online events that are basically held worldwide. And live streaming of telescope views or joining someone from another location is a great way to get around bad or cold weather. This also helps folks that just want to share how to live stack images or do astrophotography. It turns out talking about stuff in space and not just looking at that stuff through an eyepiece is a huge draw for many people. They like talking about it and engaging with it in many ways. The social aspect and not just sort of the technical aspect became much more accessible, and its draw was much more pronounced. And some members commented that they had even attended more star parties this winter than they had ever had, due to the comfort of joining virtually instead of bundling up for the cold. Which really makes sense in another way, since star party season in the United States is pretty dry during the winter, with the exception of the winter star party in Florida. So, going forward, it seems that while traditional outreach will indeed return, much of it will end up mixed up with some things that had been kind of nascent before the pandemic, like live streaming views from the eyepiece, sharing live views and screens or projectors in real life settings, like as you can see here in this image from the Central Florida Astronomical Society, getting remote speakers for clubs, and so on. Those things will continue in some fashion, and some clubs have even opted to continue Zoom meetings for their club business due to the ease of getting together post-restrictions. Many members have thoroughly enjoyed astronomy live streaming too, and will continue finding new members from around the world and just engaging folks at all levels with cool astronomy stuff. And live views on screens will also continue in many instances. With large lines in particular, sharing a view on a screen really helps with line management and keeping people engaged. Even if most members are using traditional eyepiece and telescope setups, one or two members can set up an attract station with an iPad or phone, projector or laptop sharing bright views of bright objects like the moon or planets, or even demoing how to do astrophotography. For example, Peter Core, the Oklahoma City Astronomical Society, loves doing the walking on the moon setup with this projector where he displays live views of the moon on the sidewalk. People can just run around and walk on the moon. Also, it should really not be understated just how much these efforts have exposed how much accessibility issues really need to be addressed. Even in traditional star parties, many folks have issues seeing through telescope eyepieces or binoculars, or even getting to the location. So these online events have helped many, and even live views on a screen help folks see things much better than they could have ever seen through an eyepiece. Traditional forms of outreach will continue, but hopefully peppered with lessons learned and more efforts towards accessibility. And here are some links for you for some of the Night Sky Network resources I mentioned earlier, and of course you can always go to nightsky.jpl.nasa.gov for more. And of course, here's our contact info for our program, including social media links and all that. I just want to thank you all again and hope you enjoyed the rest of Communicating Astronomy to the Public 2021.